The red lights are about to come on then for this production GTI championship race, which gets underway now, and it's a good start from Simon Hill, who blasts off into the lead, and a very slow start there for Max Walsh, who I don't know if he missed a gear or just wasn't as quick away, but already has languished himself down into the mid-pack by the looks of it. So four cars have pretty much gone past him. Simon Verco doesn't quite manage to get the job done on the inside, so Max Walsh down in 5th position, but it is Simon Hill that leads the way, the first of the red cars, with 3 further red cars behind as they make the drop down in towards Graham Hill Bend. But it is going to be number 1, Simon Hill, that heads the way. Second place then will be the car of number 83, which is Paul Blackburn, and behind we're going to have number 28, James Colburn, who's come from the inside of the second row to remain where he is, but he was passed on those initial few corners by Paul Blackburn as they turn away through left and right. Surtees and McLaren, and Max Walsh, after a good qualifying to get himself onto the front row, has work to do to try and get back there now.
Yeah, he does indeed, but a cracking start from Simon Hill, starting the race exactly how he would want to do it. So across the line, he will go to tick the first lap in the book, and then it is Paul Blackburn, as you say, giving chase. Cracking start from Paul, up 2 places, and I think that's to the demise of Max Walsh, of course. And Paul Blackburn, we knew he was eager to get the race underway, as you say, just about stopping the car in his grid box, and immediately is trying to thrust his way onto the coattails of Simon Hill in the lead of the race. And he's there or thereabouts. It's a long race, of course, 20 minutes, so he can bide his time very slightly, but there's some big moves going on in the background. Late on the brakes is Max Walsh, trying to look up the inside of the number 46 machine of John Beale, but Max Walsh, again, not the best start, but you can see he's trying to work his way back through. Yeah, we know he's got the pace, hasn't he, after that qualifying session this morning. But, of course, qualifying pace, one-lap pace, is very different to race pace, where you have to be on it pretty much all the way through the 20 minutes. So Max Walsh just slipping slightly, but he's got a good run here onto the back of John Beale. So there might be an opportunity for him to try and weave his way through by the time they get down towards Paddock Hill Bend. He has got the small matter, though, of the all-blue car of Simon Verco on his tail. So we're kind of just, again, tripling off into separate groups. The top 3 then a gap back to the 4th place car of John Beale, which is joined by Max Walsh and Simon Verco, and then behind that another 3 cars together as well. So it's all formation today by the looks of it, as they head now from Druids down in towards Graham Hill Bend. The one further back there that almost lost a place was the car that went off this morning in qualifying. That was Richard Marsh, and again is a little bit wide in towards Graham Hill Bend, so it might give the opportunity for Adam Hartz to have a look later in this lap. Yeah, John Beale came under big pressure from Max Walsh on the lap prior. Max Walsh looked around the outside, the door didn't open, that then left him vulnerable to Simon Verco. In the meantime, for second place, James Colburn under big pressure. It's the number 83 of Paul Blackburn. He's under big pressure from James Colburn. They were absolutely nose to tail as they went down the Cooper Straight. Now the opportunity has presented itself to Max Walsh to work his way up into 4th place. Late on the brakes, can he look his way around the outside of John Beale? Has a little look, takes 2 or 3 stabs at turning in. The car gets all out of shape. He manages to get that moment collected up and gets a half-decent run out of Paddock Hill Bend. He will look to the inside on the run up towards Druids, but again, the opportunity doesn't present itself, so the top 3 remain as they are. But now Max Walsh does manage to dive his way up the inside of John Beale, so they're going to be side by side on the run down towards Graham Hill Bend. John Beale on the inside, Max Walsh on the outside. They can't battle too much because Simon Verco's there, but a brilliant cutback. Very, very well read indeed. Max Walsh, he's up into 4th place. Yeah, sometimes you just have to be a little bit patient, don't you? And eventually the place will come your way, and that's exactly what now has happened for Max Walsh. But can John Beale retaliates at the next few corners? Well, he's probably going to be under pressure now from Simon Verco, who starts to reel this one up. If he gets into the toe, might have a little bit of a late break down towards Paddock Hill Bend. But while all this is going on, the top 3, and more importantly, Simon Hill now is just starting to build a gap over the rest of the pack. 1.1 seconds between himself and number 83, which is Paul Blackburn. And then James Colburn sits there in 3rd position with still a gap behind, with that new 4th place of Max Walsh as he turns his way now in towards Druids Corner. Is there going to be any fight back from John Beale? No, not quite close enough there, with still Simon Verco in 6th place. And is that group behind now starting to catch? Well, to be fair, I think all of the top 9 might just start to be continuing back together now. So let's see if these gaps do come down. But we're all getting into a bit of a rhythm where the first quarter of the race is almost complete. Yeah, so as the positions are slowly starting to stabilise, you can hear when cars are running wide over curbs or desperately on the brakes, where you just hear the tyres squealing at a sort of it's a sort of signature noise to when the cars are being pushed to their absolute limits. Over the line once again goes Simon Hill. He's still being chased by the number 83 of Paul Blackburn. He's got James Colburn just sat behind. Max Walsh, as you say, in that newly inherited 4th place. Can't afford a mistake because John Beale is still there, but arguably he's now more worried about Simon Verco as he started to get closer. Potentially a missed gear up the hill and some sort of issue there for Richard Marsh. That has left him vulnerable to the 22 of Adam Hans. Has Adam managed to work his way through and past? No, but they're absolutely together. So the white and purple car, compared to the predominantly pure white car, absolutely nose to tail through Graham Hill Bends. I'm guessing it was a missed gear for Richard Marsh, because all of a sudden he lost a load of pace heading up the hill exactly where he needed it, and that's cost him a lot of time. But Simon Verco now all over the tail of John Beale.
Is indeed, yep. So Simon Verco, his chance might be just around the corner here as he works his way back onto the start-finish line with 6 laps to be completed. Simon Hill out in front is the quickest man at the minute. 56.620 is the lap that's been recorded. Unfortunately, this weekend, the championship leader, Henry Riley, is not here. So his kind of close battle that we probably would have been seeing with Simon Hill is not going to be happening today. But hopefully Henry does return at the next rounds of the championship. And behind, we've still got that second place being held by the car of Blackburn as he works his way down in towards the left-hander. Still under pressure, though, here, so he can't rest on his laurels too much because the number 28 machine of James Colburn continues to keep him very honest indeed as they turn left through Surtees and on towards McLaren. The gap now between the top two out and two, just over a second and a half. So Simon Hill, as we said, starting to get into his groove now. But further back from them, we have still Max Walsh in 4th place, who's now just about broke away from John Beale, and still Simon Verco can't find his way through. He's trying every single trick in the book, but it's John Beale who's keeping this all-red car very wide indeed.
Yeah, so for Simon Verco, he's either got to be patient or try and push for a mistake from the car of John Beale. But John Beale, it looked like he was fighting away with Max Walsh, but since Max has got by, he's just started to drive away and is already starting to close in on the number 28 machine of James Colburn, mainly because he's fighting away with Paul Blackburn for 2nd place. They are absolutely nose to tail. That's allowing Max Walsh to close in and allowing Simon Hill in the lead of the race just to pull away yet further. So that little duo goes through Surtees, then McLaren, the initial right, Clearways the second right, and Clark Curve, that slight right kink that brings you on towards the start-finish straight, the Brabham straight. So they're absolutely nose to tail for 2nd place, but Max Walsh is going to be there. It's going to be 3 cars fighting over the final 2 spots on the podium.
Yep, just being aided by those 2 up the road, not being as quick as Max Walsh. So, as we said, he was quick in qualifying, but it just a tardy start has dropped him down the order. So, a bit like earlier on today, through those 20 minutes of qualifying, he just gradually worked his way towards the front, and that could be exactly what he starts to do within this race as well, because he's now within touching distance of the first of those cars, which is going to be James Colburn, as they turn again down towards the left-hander of Graham Hill Bend. Just to mention, there's a great fight going on right towards the rear of the field as well with the older car of Rob Sadler, and he's being joined by the number 19 machine, which is quick in a straight line, Daniel Jones. And then through the corners, Rob Sadler just has the advantage to try and hold on to the place as they run side by side in towards the corner. Will it come off that battle? No, Rob's still going to hold on, but then the power back in the hands of Dan Jones, and then not too far back is the next of the red cars we have in this field, which is going to be Gavin Drake.
Yeah, Rob Sadler, of course, the championship coordinator, having a brilliant battle with those cars around him. As you say, he's just hasn't quite got the legs in a straight line, but through the corners and on the brakes, that's where he does manage to fend off any attentions from elsewhere. Max Walsh, don't rule him out, because now he's already on the tail of James Colburn. Paul Blackburn will see that and try and run away as quickly as possible. And even with those 2 battling, they've not exactly lost a load of time to Simon Hill in the lead of the race. So maybe the introduction of Max Walsh may just about bring those 2 or bring those 3 away. And I have to say as well, Simon Verco, whether it's some sort of mistake, I don't know, he's really fallen away from the tail of John Beale.
Yeah, he has, hasn't he? So Simon Verco might just be fading in the first part of this race towards the end of that first half, because 10 minutes have nearly been completed, so Simon Verco might want to find something in the next 10 minutes, but we'll see what he has got left in the tank as Simon Hill goes through. Still leads by a comfy margin. It's not being a huge margin at the minute. In fact, it comes down that time between him and Paul Blackburn. So he can't, again, rest on his laurels in the lead of the race, just maintaining the gap, which is all Simon Hill really needs to do at the minute. And before too much longer, as we said, the car in fourth place, the black, grey and the blue one of Max Walsh is starting to come into the equation now for a step on the podium. But when does he strike? When does he think he can make his move? When is the best place on the circuit to do that move if he has the pace to do so? But all these questions, I'm sure, will be answered in the next 10 minutes as they work their way now down towards 30, through the left-hander, on towards McLaren for the 11th time.
Yeah, it's anyone's guess, really, what the podium will look like, because Simon Hill, whilst he's still out in front, all it takes is a snagged break and he's back into the trio behind that continue to battle. Max Walsh forever gets a good run out of the final corner and towards the start-finish line. That's where we see him close in. He's so good, in fact, he might just about pick up third place here. Yes, he has gone through and past the number 28 of James Colburn. So Max Walsh later on the brakes just about cuts his way in between the pair of them. So Max up into third place. James Colburn now down into fourth. And that won't really impress Paul Blackburn, because he will now look behind him. Pink has been traded for blue, and we know that Max is quick. Paul will know that as well, and will really have to consider defending this second place or just fully focused on chasing Simon Hill.
Yeah, indeed. And if Max Walsh gets past, what was the gap this morning in qualifying? It was 13 thousandths of a second. So, again, with the pace that Max Walsh has shown so far today, he could potentially then close the gap down to Simon Hill and maybe make a move before we see the checkered flag. So all of this to be decided, but the first thing he needs to do is Max Walsh try and get past Paul Blackburn in that number 83 machine, and he gets onto now the Brabham straight. He gets a good run, and all of a sudden Paul Blackburn trying to break the toe here, because Max Walsh is definitely quick. Can he be the last of the late breakers down towards Paddock Hill Bend, where he goes for a more wider line to try and get the cut back then for the run towards Drury's, but I don't think that's quite close enough. There's probably about 2 car lengths between the two of them, so Blackburn is safe for now as they work their way in towards Druids. And for Simon Hill, the gap does extend once again. We're back out to just shy of 2 seconds.
Yeah, for now being the key phrase there, I think, Matt, because we know that Max is quick, but we also know that Paul Blackburn isn't going to give up on this one easy, because as you spotted, just starting to break the toe. The window is down on his car, so clearly he's starting to feel rather toasty behind the wheel and wants to try and sort of focus on defending from Max Walsh, going very, very defensive in towards clearways. That will massively compromise his exit, however. That may all go the way of Max Walsh, and we could see Max up into second place in just a few moments' time. So towards the start-finish line they will go, and Max Walsh will be on the inside. It will be Paul Blackburn on the outside, and I think that's only going one way. Max Walsh later on the brakes, the car skipping and jumping its way into turn one as it gets all sort of contoured on the brakes. Manages to work his way through. Max Walsh up into second place. He's worked hard for that, but on sort of black and white, he's got back to exactly where he started. Yeah,
although Paul Blackburn was under pressure through Clark Curve, he still decided to take the wider line to leave the door open for Max Walsh. But then that could be the case of what's the point of fighting, because you're only going to delay each other and you're going to lose ground to the leader. So what Paul Blackburn now might choose to do is try and stick as close as he can to Max. And if Max is quick, which we know he is, if they can all stay together, it might then give the chance of Paul Blackburn and James Colburn the chance of trying to overhaul Simon Hill as well. It's going to be a hard task. We know that Max Walsh has been quick. He's made his way from where he dropped down to in 5th place back up to 2nd. But now there's going to be an even tougher nut ahead of him to try and crack, which is the form of Simon Hill. And that gap has grown slightly over that lap as well, 2 seconds. But, of course, we know Max Walsh was in the process of making a move there. So it might be on the cards now for this gap to come down. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next few laps. We're down to just under 6.5 minutes to go. And we have had, as we said, that change now for second place.
Yeah, Simon Hill consistently in the 56.9s. We've seen Max Walsh, when he's pushing, can be in the 56.8s, even the 56.7s. So we may see that lead gap come down yet more. I like how Max Walsh has dealt with those two, because not only did he arrive onto the back of Colburn and Blackburn, he got there, picked his way through and past, disappeared and left those two battling whilst he focuses on those cars up the road. So picking their way through the final corner now comes race leader Simon Hill. Max Walsh continues to give chase. So Simon Hill over the line. Max Walsh will then follow. And what has the gap change to. It has come down, and it's come down substantially, because back over the line goes Max Walsh with a personal fastest lap of the race of 56.657. That's only 400 slower than the outright fastest lap of the race. And Matt, that gap has gone from 2.1 seconds down to 1.8, and we've still got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, just nibbles away, doesn't he? So Max Walsh is just continuing to bring the gap down, and of course with tensions from behind being shaken off, which means he doesn't really have to worry about the rearview mirror. He knows he's quick, he knows he's got the gap, he can just focus all of his attention to the car ahead of him. So Simon Hill might be a little bit worried now. We'll see how it all unfolds in the last 5 minutes of this race. Final step on the podium is still not sorted, but of course Blackburn and Colburn were in second and third before Max Walsh got there, so they were both comfortable on the podium, but now they're both fighting over just one step. So who will it be? We'll have to wait and see, but they are fairly comfortable up the road as well from what's going to be John Bill, so it does mean that they have their own battle to focus on rather than worry about the number 46 machine. And Simon Verco now has really dropped back, so he's got no real chance as it stands of getting back into the top 5, so he just has to plod on and make sure he gets some valuable points here in this first race of the day. While up front, Simon Hill and Max Walsh, the gap now 1.777. Last time through there was only, 25 thousandths of a second that separated the two in terms of a lap time.
Yeah, it looks like they've come out slightly this lap, however. I'm not sure whether there's been a mistake from Max Walsh, but it looked like he's just lost a bit of time, at least through the first part of the lap. Through the latter part, I can't see him closing in, and unfortunately as well, Rob Sadler, the brilliant battle we saw between himself, Daniel Jones, and it was the number 25 machine of Gavin Drake. That has all but dissipated now. So over the line goes Simon Hill, quickly followed by Max Walsh. No, it does come down, and comes down substantially, 1.5 seconds. So maybe Max not quite as quick through the first part of the lap. The second part of the lap is where we see it come down. So that's half a second in the space of, 2.5 minutes. I don't think he's going to do it unless we see a mistake from Simon Hill. But Max Walsh is pushing for it. We've still got Blackburn and Colburn nose to tail and fighting away. If they continue to do so, it looks like John Beale's slowly reeling them in.
Yeah, that's the only thing that might help out Max Walsh is a slight mistake. And, of course, they can start to come when you see your rival a little bit closer in the rearview mirror. And traffic might also play a part in the closing stages as well, because Rob Sadler is not too far away. He's just about to come up towards the line to start his next lap. And already through clearways and on towards Clark Curve now does come Simon Hill in the race lead. So that could be something that also plays in the mind of Simon. But, again, the gap might just be slightly down, 1.5 seconds it was. This time it's going to be 1.3. So, yeah, another 2/10 taken out by Max Walsh as he crosses the line, heads down towards Paddock Hill Bend. Still nothing to choose between third, fourth and almost fifth now. So John Bill is bringing himself back into the equation, because last time through he was about 0.3 of a second quicker than those two ahead of him. So they continue to squabble, although they're not changing places. They are, by the looks of it, holding each other up. So John Bill might just start rubbing his hands together very shortly and think he might have a chance of a podium.
Yeah, because he's inside that top 5, as you say. He can pick up fourth and third are absolutely nose to tail. So we may see that change. Max Walsh again doing what he can to close in to race leader Simon Hill. Too little too late, I'm afraid, I think, with 2 minutes remaining. He continues to chip away, but of course a mistake can always happen. The duo for the final step on the podium is dangerously close to becoming a trio now. And massively fallen away, unfortunately, is the car of Simon Verco. So we saw him fighting for a spot inside that top 5, but unfortunately that's dissipated. The gap down from 1.3.5 to 1.2.
But again, even though they worked their way through Paddock Hill Bend, again, the gap looks closer than what it was across the line. So again, it's just this kind of inspiration that Max is getting in second place. He can now see what he wants to take away. And, of course, the more you aim for it, the closer it gets here. So Max is still not done, and running out wide is going to be Paul Blackburn. He tries to come back onto the circuit, almost makes a little bit of contact there with Jamie Colburn, but managed to avoid each other. But now they're starting to squabble. John Bill is right there. So 3 or 2 red cars and a slightly pink one in third place now as they turn their way in towards McLaren, on towards Clearways. But it is going to be Jamie Colburn that has got his way through. Paul Blackburn down to 4th, and 5th place still there or thereabouts is John Bill. And I think we're going to be on to the last lap of the race. 55 seconds left when they crossed, and the gap down to less than 3/4 of a second.
Yeah, so Paul Blackburn will be over the moon, or will be kicking himself there Will Paul, having that small mistake on the penultimate lap of the race. That's allowed James Colburn up into that final podium spot. John Beale will be motivated more than ever to apply pressure and maybe pick up another place, which he has done. So John Beale up into 4th place, and it's going from bad to worse for James Blackburn. One small mistake, or for James Colburn, pardon me. So James Colburn, one small mistake. It's not just cost him a podium, it's kicked him down to the very final spot inside that top 5. But what a brilliant race it has been from Simon Hill. He's fended off as much pressure as he can from Max Walsh, who's got within a second. Another couple of laps and it may have been a different story, but Simon Hill towards the line.
Yeah, they're not quite going to catch the traffic, so the checker flag is at the ready with the clock now ticking to 0. And Simon Hill takes another win this year in the Production GTI Championship. He wins in the end by, well, 0.666 of a second. That's an omen, isn't it? I'm sure. But Hill and Walsh come through first and second. 3rd place does go the way of Jamie Colburn. Got that done just before they headed on to the last lap of the race. He'll be